Welcome back to the training. It's Frank Calabro Jr. And you guys have made it. You made it to the next video. This is going to be the next video in our series. This is going to be video number 4, the Bitcoin story. We're going to have some fun, guys. You ready to have some fun? This is really the exciting part. And once you get pulled into this thing called Bitcoin, it's going to change everything, man. It's going to change your life. Hopefully it doesn't pull you in as far as it pulled me in, or maybe it will. Maybe, and listen, that's a good thing to get pulled into Bitcoin. It's something you definitely want to learn about. It's something you want to know about. It's something you want to become proficient at. It's kind of like, the first people that learned how to use the internet. Okay. That's the same thing, guys. You're going to be like one of the first people to learn how to use Bitcoin. And, you truly are in the infancy stage if you're just getting started with Bitcoin. I know you might be thinking, oh, I'm too late. You're probably 20 years early. And I'm not even kidding you, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about the Bitcoin story, okay? A little bit about the history of Bitcoin, okay? That's what this video is going to be about. Grab your notebook. I'm going to give you a homework assignment. We're going to talk about some really cool things. This is going to be a short video, but it's going to be impactful, okay? Impactful. I want to set a couple things straight with Bitcoin, and I want to point you in the right direction. I want to show you guys what I did. Now, before we begin, I actually read this book back in the 90s. I think I read the first edition, The Creature from Jekyll Island, and I read this book, and Edward Griffin actually had a chance to see this man live in person down in Acapulco, Mexico, actually a couple of years ago. It was pretty recent, but it was a couple of years ago, and I read this book. But when I read this book, first of all, I really didn't know what to expect. I heard something about it, but I really didn't know what to think. And after I read this book, it completely transformed like the way I thought about money. I never understood how money was created out of thin air. And I was like, oh my. After I read this book, I was like, oh my, there's no way this can last. There's no way this can work forever. There's no way. And it terrified me in many ways. And I was like, man, if everybody read this book, there'd be like a revolution tomorrow. Nobody would accept what's going on in the banking system. But this book kind of like planted the seed in my mind. And I'm like, well, what's the solution? I never knew the solution. Like, there wasn't a solution until Bitcoin came along. There was no other solution. This was the currency system, the exchange of value system that we were using and had been using. And there was no alternative at the time. So, like I said, I remember reading this book back in the 90s. And if you haven't read this book, pick this up and read it. I mean, you can find this anywhere. I got it at my local library at the time, and it was like a new release or something. And I read it, and man, I was blown away by this book. But this book really planted some seeds in my mind. And I'm like, man, there's got to be a better way than what they're doing, man, because this system is going to collapse. There's no way this is going to work forever. So the fascinating thing about Bitcoin is that nobody knows who the creator or creators are. Nobody knows who started Bitcoin. Can you imagine that? I mean, if you don't know that yet, well, now you do know that. Nobody knows who invented and started Bitcoin. There are numerous videos, documentaries, and articles about this subject. You can research it yourself. You should research it. It is a fascinating topic. It is a fascinating subject. It's definitely part of the Bitcoin story and the history. Like, how did this thing even get started? A single person, or possibly a group of people, used the name Satoshi Nakamoto and released a link to the Bitcoin white paper in 2008. That's when this whole thing kind of like got started, okay? An author that called themselves Satoshi Nakamoto, titled Bitcoin, okay? They sent out to an email list, a cryptography, hard to say that word for me, mailing email list, sent out an email to, and it was titled Bitcoin, and it said it was a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Okay? So someone named Satoshi Nakamoto sent out an email to a bunch of internet geeks, okay, that would only understand this stuff, and sent out the white paper, basically the instructions on this peer-to-peer, basically electronic cashless system, okay, an exchange of value system. Sent this out in 2008. Pretty fascinating. And the date of this event actually happened on October 31st, 2008. That's when this really all started, okay? Now, obviously it started before then because they actually had to work on this white paper, but this is when it really was released, okay? It was talked about, and it began to circulate in this very small group of people at the time, okay? It began to circulate and gain some interest. Okay. Let's fast forward just a little bit. On January 3rd, 2009, and a lot of people know about this date, the Bitcoin network came into existence with Satoshi Nakamoto that mined what they call the Genesis block of Bitcoin. So basically, this was the first block of Bitcoin, block number 0, which had an award of 50 Bitcoins. So Satoshi mined the first 50 Bitcoins. This started on January 3rd, 2009. On January 9th, the open source code for Bitcoin was released to the world. Okay? This is when Bitcoin was released to the whole world. The open source code was released on January 9th, 2009. Hal Finney, who was a programmer, and Hal Finney, the late Hal Finney, his story is absolutely fascinating. That's somebody you'd probably want to research. Go to YouTube, go to Google and do a search. His story is completely amazing. Anyhow, he was a programmer that downloaded the software the day it was released. So on January 9th, Hal Finney downloaded this open source code for Bitcoin. The first Bitcoin transaction actually took place a couple days later on January 12, 2009, when Satoshi sent Hal Finney 10 Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin came from block 170 on the blockchain. Okay? So just a couple of early stories here in January 2009 when Bitcoin really, this is when the wheels started rolling. Okay? Obviously, only a few people in the world knew about this, but this is what happened. This is the chain of events. On May 22nd, 2010, let's fast forward a year. Actually, more than a year, right? Let's fast forward. The first real use purchase took place for Bitcoin when Laszlo purchased 2 large Papa John pizzas in Jacksonville, Florida. Maybe you heard of this story before. It's kind of a famous story now, right? I know a lot of people have heard about this. Maybe you didn't hear about this. But this was the first time. What Laszlo did was he went to a forum and he put up a post and he said, listen, I've got this internet geek money we call Bitcoin. It's not worth nothing. And I want to make a real purchase. I want to purchase a real item and I want to pay for that item with Bitcoin. Okay. No one has ever done this before. And so anyway, somebody on the forum said, all right, I'll take you up on that offer. And Laszlo said, all right, I'm going to pay you this much Bitcoin and you're going to give me 2 large pizzas. So we're going to do a real purchase for this internet geek money called Bitcoin. And I want to buy a real item and we'll just use pizza. So someone took him up on the offer. Okay. They took him up on the offer and Laszlo paid 10,000 Bitcoin. Sounds crazy, but it really wasn't crazy at the time because Bitcoin was basically worthless. Okay? It sounds crazy, but Laszlo wanted to have a real use case for Bitcoin. So somebody like in the UK said, all right, I'll do it. So what they did was Laszlo sent them to 10,000 Bitcoin. That person, I think in the UK, what they did is they probably went online or maybe they called on the phone. I don't know how they did it, but they called to Papa John's in Jacksonville, Florida, ordered 2 pizzas, paid for it like using a credit card or something, and had them sent to Laszlo's house. So this is known as the first Bitcoin transaction. Somebody had to do this. Somebody had to spend the first Bitcoins and buy something and make that first transaction. And this is exactly what happened. Now, at the time of the purchase, you might say, well, that was crazy, man. You shouldn't have done it. Well, at the time of the purchase, none of us would have known what Bitcoin was going to be worth eventually. None of us know. None of us still know what Bitcoin's going to be worth. We only know what it is right now today if we go and look it up. Okay? But 10 years from now, how much is Bitcoin going to be worth? Is it going to be 1 million, 2.5 million, 3.5 million, or $3? Nobody knows, right? At the time of this transaction, Bitcoin wasn't even worth a penny. It was worth like 0.004 cents each. So did Laszlo get ripped off? Not really. In dollars, it equaled about $40. So he paid about $40 for 2 pizzas just to try it out and say, all right, let me see if I can spend this stuff and buy something. So May 22nd has become known as Bitcoin Pizza Day. A lot of the Bitcoin geeks, including Frank Calabro Jr., we know this day, okay? I'm going to go out and buy me a slice of pizza on May 22nd every year and celebrate this. Laszlo had the guts to go out and make the very first purchase, right, with his Bitcoin. So this is a true story, guys. You can look this up. It's fascinating. It's part of the history. So Bitcoin is known as the Internet of Money. Andreas Antonopoulos says that, right? It's the Internet of Money. It truly is the Internet of Money. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer exchange of value system that runs outside of corrupt government control, which is probably why the whole thing got started in the first place. All the corruption in the world, and it's pretty bad. I don't need to get into the details about it. All of it could be corrected with technology. This experiment, this technology called blockchain, it could eliminate corruption. It could eliminate cheating. It could eliminate double spending. It could eliminate so many things. And it's a public ledger that anybody can see the transactions. You can't cheat it. You can't hack it. You can't manipulate it. All that kind of cool stuff. So all this cool technology that's coming out, that's evolving, is because of the corruption. And people are coming up with ways that that are transparent ways where people can't be fooled and taken advantage of. Okay, that's what Bitcoin is. Okay, it's an exchange of value system that it's voluntary. You don't have to use it, but people are voluntarily using it because why? You can't cheat it. It's honest. It's awesome, guys. All right. Now, there are no physical Bitcoins, okay, in case anyone has any confusion about that. Only balances kept on a public ledger that everyone has transparent access to. We talked about this in a previous video, right? Your coins aren't technically inside of a wallet, right? They're on the blockchain. They're on this public ledger. They're attached to an address. We talked about this. And everybody can see it. Now, nobody actually knows who owns these addresses, okay? Nobody actually knows, but it's open and it's public. And when you have that wallet, you have access to the coins attached to that address. There's no physical Bitcoin. The Bitcoin network is run by volunteers called miners. You can research this. We can talk about mining forever. I really don't want to get deep into that subject because this is a course designed for new people, and you guys are going to figure that out anyway. The miners use special computers to verify the transactions, and they are paid a fraction of a Bitcoin as an award. So that's how the network actually works. There's miners all across the world. They're all across the globe. Some people mine Bitcoin in their house, okay, in their garage, in their home, in their office. There's gigantic mining facilities with thousands of computers or hundreds of computers, right? So it's ran by volunteers. Nobody says, hey, I go and mine Bitcoin. These are all volunteers that want to do it, okay? So they use these computers and they solve these mathematical equations and they verify the transactions. It's awesome, guys. You're going to learn about this naturally as you go forward in your Bitcoin career. I'm not going to bore you with all the technical analysis. You'll go down that rabbit hole as deep as you want to go. All right. Now, I just talked about this. Like, once you start getting hooked about Bitcoin, okay, once you start getting pulled into this, I heard about Bitcoin in 2011. I thought it was the most foolish idea I had ever heard of. It was ridiculous. Why would you take fiat paper dollars and exchange it for these digital credits called Bitcoin? Why would anyone do this? I laughed it off, literally laughed it off. Then in 2015, 2016, I got pulled in. I took a second look and I started to study and I started to understand. And then there was no turning back for me. I was Bitcoin 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for like a year. I mean, I was consumed by this technology. I understood right away what it was. I knew what was coming. I knew what was happening. I knew that we had this exchange of value system that was outside of the banking system, and the government didn't have control over it. The people had control over it. So I knew instantly what this was, okay? So you can go as deep down the Bitcoin rabbit hole as you want to go. If you want to go crazy like I did, I didn't even have a choice, guys. I was just pulled in and there was no coming back, okay? It's highly addictive. I'm not going to say it's not. For me, it was highly addictive. I had been waiting for something like this to come along since the 90s, okay? Ever since I read that book, Creature Jekyll Isle, as soon as I read that book, I was like, man, there's got to be another system, an alternate solution to this. This banking system, this is corrupt, man. This can't go on forever. It's going to fail eventually. So I've been waiting for something like Bitcoin for years, and nothing came along until I seen this thing. The second time I took a look at it, like I said, 2015, 2016 time frame, and I'm like, oh my, man, I know what this is. Once I was pulled in, I could think of nothing but Bitcoin for an entire year, and I'm not even exaggerating. Where should I begin? So if you're brand new, like, where do you begin? I'm going to just show you where I began. I'm going to share with you where I got started with Bitcoin, and I began to do my research, and I began to just travel down this road, and it's fascinating. I'm still traveling. I'm still on this road. I'm still part of this experiment called Bitcoin, and so are you now. You're also a part of it. One of the first things I did, or in the early days of my Bitcoin career, there's a movie, a documentary. You're definitely going to want to watch this. It's called Banking on Bitcoin. Came out in 2016. And there's other documentaries now. There's other movies and such. It's fascinating. But this is definitely somewhere where you definitely want to start. You want to watch this. Make sure you watch this, okay? And the great thing about this is it goes over a lot of the earlier stuff from Bitcoin, like the earlier stuff. And, you know, it'll lay down a solid foundation, okay? It's going to show you some cool stuff. It's going to show you kind of like the dark side of Bitcoin too. And just watch it, man. It's just a fascinating movie. I've seen it several times. I still watch it. Matter of fact, I want to watch it again. Okay. I always want to watch this movie. I pick up different things. I look at different things every time I watch it. I realize different things, and it just brings up even more questions, or it answers more questions than I have had in the past. So it's definitely a place that you want to start. You can find this anywhere. YouTube, Netflix, I don't know, Hulu, all these things. You can find it just about anywhere. It's very easy to find this thing. The next thing that I did, this is my mentor, my coach. Frankie, where did you learn about Bitcoin? Well, here's who I learned about Bitcoin from. Andreas Antonopoulos. This is where I learned about Bitcoin, right here. This guy right here. And Andreas traveled the world for like 5 years living out of a suitcase and went to conferences and spoke to internet geeks that were interested in this internet money called Bitcoin. And he would talk about Bitcoin and lecture about Bitcoin to anyone that would listen to him. And like I said, he did this for about 5 years. And I tell you what, for about a year, I think I watched every single video this guy ever made, man. And I'm not even exaggerating. I'm not even kidding you. Okay. So this is my coach, my mentor. This is where I learned about Bitcoin. Okay. This is where I learned about the Bitcoin story, the Bitcoin history, how Bitcoin works, all that cool stuff. Okay. From this gentleman right here. This guy is very easy to find on YouTube and probably other platforms. Okay. But this is where I went. Okay. And this is where once I started watching his stuff, that was it. It was like every day. I mean, every single day, man. I'm not even kidding you. Usually at night, I pop on YouTube and I would watch one or two of his videos, and like clockwork every single day for a year. If you go to his YouTube channel, his content is awesome. He's also got it broken down to different categories, okay? So you can pick and choose like playlists and all that kind of stuff. But man, I just started from the very beginning, man. I think I found his earliest videos and I just went through them and I just watched them all, man. But this is where I learned about Bitcoin from. This guy right here, Andreas Antonopoulos. All right, so Bitcoin is a self-sufficient ecosystem that is ran by volunteers called miners and users of Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer environment. Okay, that's basically my own definition of what Bitcoin is. It is an experiment of how the world exchanges value. You are now a part of the Bitcoin story. Okay, nobody knows how this story ends because this story is still being written. We are a part of this story called Bitcoin, guys. It's interesting. It's fascinating. It's exciting. It's exhilarating, guys. Okay? And there's other cryptocurrencies too, right? Other technologies have come along. I want to stay focused on Bitcoin here, but this is where you want to start, man. Once you learn this, you'll naturally evolve into looking at other coins and understanding other coins. There's only about maybe 6, 7 coins that I'm interested in myself. But Bitcoin is the king. It's always going to be the king of cryptocurrency as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know of. All right, your homework assignment, guys. Here it is. Write this down. Here it is. You got to watch the movie, Banking on Bitcoin. Put it on your schedule this week. You're going to write down whatever night you're going to watch it, or whatever day, or whatever time you're going to watch this movie. That's your homework assignment. You got to do it. Now, when you watch it, I want you to have a notebook and a pen. And I want you to take notes and write down any questions you may have. And then what you do is you take those questions and you research those questions over on YouTube or Google or whatever search engine you want to use. Doesn't really matter. That right there will begin your education, because this is what I did. This is what I did for a whole year. I'm like, man, I got to learn about this Bitcoin thing. But I was naturally pulled into it. Okay, once I got hooked, I just did this automatically without even thinking about it. This is what I did. You're also going to want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Andreas Antonopoulos. I'll put the link below. I'll put his channel information below. Subscribe and start plugging into his training, his knowledge. This guy is just he's like the godfather of Bitcoin, right? Satoshi's like the inventor of Bitcoin. Well, Andreas is like the godfather of Bitcoin. He's going to teach you all about the Bitcoin. I promise you. His stuff is awesome, my friends. He is so knowledgeable, and I love the way he teaches and explains things and breaks it down. And like I said, this is Frank Calabro Jr.'s coach. This is my mentor. This is who I learned from, guys. Okay. All right, guys. That concluded the Bitcoin story video number 4. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go into Bitcoin tools and resources. That'll be the next video I'm going to be sending out to you guys. Okay. So we're almost all the way there, guys. Video number 5 is going to be on the way pretty soon. All right, so what you're going to want to do is you got your homework assignment. Go ahead and take care of that. In a day or two, I'll send you that next video. Just go ahead and be sure to look out for it. It'll be sent to you by email, the email that you put in to the opt-in page. Okay, I send all your videos to the same email address that you give me. Okay, and like I said, we're going to cover Bitcoin tools and resources. You're going to love this next video, okay? I'm going to show you a lot of things that you may or may not be aware of, okay? I'm going to show you some fascinating stuff in the next video. It's going to be pretty exciting. You're going to like this stuff that I'm going to share with you. It's going to help you with your Bitcoin training and also your Bitcoin career. All right, that's going to conclude this lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed this. That was Bitcoin, the Bitcoin story and history, basically just the basics. You can go as deep down this rabbit hole as you want to go, guys. Okay, I warned you. It's highly addictive. All right, look out for that next video. Frank Calabro Jr. signing off. Thank you.